Hi, I'm Jerry Rasco, and I've been working as a professional comic book artist since 2004. I've worked for many independent publishers, such as MC Studios, Beta 3, Arcana, and Counterpoint Comics. The videos I make here on YouTube are my way of sharing my experiences, tips, tricks, and my passion for comics. Whether you're a creator, a longtime fan, or someone new to comics, I hope you enjoy these videos. That said, let's get started.
All right. Hey, everybody. Attempt number 2. So I actually just spent about 45 minutes recording a video about some new stuff I wanted to share with everybody and found out that the audio was trash. So that's why I'm wearing the headset. The audio through the microphone here seems to be a little better, so we're going to go with that and keep our fingers crossed that that's going to work out for us. So as I said, take number 2. So what I wanted to share is that I have just finished drawing the first book of my new project called The Just. And I'm super excited. I wanted to share some of the stuff with you guys. This portfolio is full of pages from The Just. And I don't want to give away any spoilers, so we're going to just kind of flip through real quick. No spoilers. But yeah, I just finished the last page the other day, got it scanned in, and that means we're moving on. So next steps is coloring, lettering, and then getting it to you. Couldn't be more excited. So this is a series that was written by my friend and my writing partner, Terry Sala. We've been working together for about 6 years now on projects, and this is something that we did that is completely creator owned by us. Again, the book is called The Just, and it's a superhero story. It's a story about a multi-generational hero team. So if you think about back in the day, your Justice Leagues, Super Friends, the Avengers, to a degree, even like the X-Men, right? You had your original group of superheroes that came together for whatever reason, and then they would inevitably have either sidekicks or younger heroes would join and sort of the next generation, and then they might sort of take over and join the team. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. There are a lot of twists and turns to it that, again, no spoilers, I don't want to give away, but we're really excited about the project and how it's going. So I also had some other artwork I wanted to show you, including what I've got on the board, and I'm going to do a little bit of drawing here as well for you. So the first thing that I wanted to show was, I think some folks have seen this stuff on social media. I think I may have posted it in other videos, but these are the original design pieces that I did for the characters. So to show you the teams. So this is the original team of The Just, and we have, sort of homages to some very classic superheroes. We have your Wonder Woman stand-in, your Batman stand-in, your Superman stand-in, your Flash stand-in kind of people. So this is the team that you sort of get to know a little bit, and this is where it all starts. So Terry, when he wrote the project, wrote the scripts, came up with the character names and concepts, and then what their powers were, and then I came up with all the designs based on his descriptions. So what I did here is I kind of looked at like a 70s and 80s style of design. You'll see, belts with buckle, like a belt with trunks on the outside, the cuff gloves, Buccaneer boots, stuff you saw, the little boots here, the belt stuff, things that you would have seen in sort of that, again, that 80s, 70s, 80s X-Men sort of, I guess, Bronze Age superheroes. That was my thought process as I was designing these characters. Then you have their proteges, the next group of heroes. Sorry, I'm trying to flip through here. So this is the second generation of heroes, and again, some of them are based on their mentors. you can see here, this guy is the protege of the detective character, so the Batman character. So he's an homage there, etc. We have another speedster who's related to our original speedster. So that's these characters here, trying to go again, maybe a little more 90s, more belts, banded metal, straps, that kind of stuff. Things that we were very comfortable with the 90s. So that sort of that second or the next generation. Here's the third generation, and again, playing up on that sort of 90s and 2000s look. Again, more belts and buckles, a lot of black, starting to see more black in the character designs, banded metal, a lot more of that. You also notice there's less, other than he's got a helmet, but that has to do with his powers. We're seeing more faces, less mask kind of stuff. And then this is the last and the newest group of heroes. And again, tried to kind of update these to be more sleek. Again, always based off of the earlier generations, but more of a sleek thinking of, modern stuff like your modern, like Under Armour, athletic wear, things that you see actually today. A little bit in mind, as I was designing these characters as well. So that's the newest group, and they will be heavily introduced, and you'll see a lot about them in those first 36 pages of the first issue of the Just. So then, if you've been on my channel before, I did a couple of videos where I walked you through the process of where I actually drew this piece. So you have the original character here, the detective, and then his original, first sidekick, and then second sidekick. So first, second, third generation of these characters with the cityscape behind them. So what I'm doing now is not only I did this one, but I'm continuing to do all of the original characters of the Just with their proteges. So I started with this one first, and then I did this next one. Where we have Amazing Woman and her daughter, and they are both based on sort of, again, that Amazonian premise, and so they're fighting, and you can see the motif of the star, the headpiece, stuff like that, continuing through with them. Then I have our speedsters. I believe it's supersonic and subsonic. And I believe that they are, she is her niece, I believe, if I remember correctly. But running across the water, very classic speedster image. So I want to show them together using their powers. And now the newest one that I'm working on here is the sort of alien character. He's called the Venusian, because he claims to be from Venus, and his protege, who's called Venus Boy to start with, and here they are fighting a giant robot. So in the first video, I talked a lot about the line work and what I'm doing and sort of the thoughts, and I actually did I inked all this corner piece and this to kind of show you the process and what I was, how I was working. So again, because that video wasn't usable because of the sound, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over on this corner over here. And I will try to zoom in a little bit as we go. So what I said in the earlier video, I started with, again, the tools. If you've seen any of my videos before, I often reflect on the tools that I use, so that if you're a young artist or a new artist and you're learning and you're not sure where to start, maybe this will help you out with some tools. So this is just what they call a lead holder. So it's not really it's a mechanical pencil, but the lead inside is much thicker, and you have to sharpen it with a special pencil. I don't sharpen this. I leave it flat and dull so that I can very quickly sketch out some ideas with a real soft, flat pencil. And then that's where I start. Then I come in with a .05 and .05 or .5 to, your regular mechanical pencil that you can get at Staples or Office Max or whatever. I have HB lead in it, so it's a nice middle ground. It's not too hard, not too soft. And I'll sort of tighten up the details that I like in there. Drop some more permanent lines. These are the lines I'm going to keep. And then, so out there's a shoulder. That would be the bicep and the elbow. And here's where the arm got cut off. And then if I want to do even smaller details, usually eyes, faces, stuff like that, or in this case, these little, these small blocks, panels. So the idea here is this is the arm of the robot. He's cut it off with a laser beam. He's ripped it off the arm. But this robot is so big that the body is so far away that panels that are this size up close are just sort of little hinted at lines far away. That's the idea. That's what I'm trying to convey. So if you have really small little details, I'll use this. This is a 0.3 millimeter lead, and again, same thing, HB lead in there, so it's soft but not too soft. It's easy to erase, but it also doesn't super smudge just by touching it. So it's a nice in-between pencil lead for my usages, for what I want to do. So I could go in and I could draw every little panel, hint at the line. I don't need to do that because I'm going to ink this myself. Now, if I was going to hand this off to an inker, somebody else, I might not want them to come up with that texture themselves. So if I was going to work with somebody, I'd want to give them very clear guide on what I wanted. So I would absolutely draw in every little line, crevice, texture, bit, and then that way they can ink it and then eventually bring, their own artistic style to it. But in this case, I'm inking myself. So when I'm inking myself, I don't have to draw it all in because I know I'm just going to sort of make random horizontal and vertical lines through the whole piece to fill up this texture similar to what I did over there. So I'm able to just move ahead with my Micron. This is the 01 Micron. I use the 01 Micron, again, if you've seen any of my videos, for pretty much all of my line work. The basic thin line that you see is this line. It, for the most part, is not the end line that you're going to see. You can see here where the outlines, I'm going to come in with stuff that's much thicker. That's going to help separate your foreground, middle ground, background elements. I have a plethora of pens at my disposal, as you can see, that I use. I'll go through. I'll be using here in this piece probably, I'm just looking, 1, 2, 3, 4, anywhere from 5 to 6 other pens to do more of the finishing work on this. So, but I like to start with this, and I've said this before. Again, if you've seen some of my other videos, like the detectives one or any of my drawing videos, I do this because I can make these lines thicker if and when I want to. It's easier to start with a nice thin line and then add ink to it versus starting with a very thick line and then having to use some form of paint, whiteout, ink, white ink pen, whatever, to try and erase or remove ink. It's a lot harder to remove ink than it is to add it. So that's my philosophy on it. That said, there are times when if I know something is going to be very, very upfront, like this being very, very close, if I wanted to, I could have certainly drawn the outline of this with a thicker pen to start with and save myself some time. But I'm also not under a deadline. So if it takes me an extra, 10 minutes or 20 minutes or hour or day or whatever to go in and add ink and thicken up lines, so be it. So anyway, that's just my philosophy. I find it a lot easier to add ink later than to remove ink. So again, this is just trying to add a look, almost again like a texture feel of what this is, and the whole point is, I like the idea that things are made up of pieces, right? That they're, when you see like in old sci-fi and stuff, you'll see these giant robots or spaceships or something. They look like it's just crafted out of one big piece of metal, and we know that if you go up and you look at like a plane, you get on a plane and you'll see all the panels and pieces, and it's all riveted together, right? That skin of that plane. And that's how technology's made. If you look at your car from a distance, it looks super smooth. You get up closer and there's panels and there's seams and lines where they all fit together. So that's kind of the idea that I had for this robot. And then also I thought it would help identify the scale. So if the panels, the pieces that make it up are this big here, and they look that tiny back there, that's how big this thing is. So that really helps emphasize that the size of a giant robot. And then the other thing that I like about this, which I think is more evident over here, is the characters here in the front are very smooth. They have sort of smooth, shiny, very traditional spandex-like superhero outfits. Their skin is smooth. This guy doesn't have any hair. They've got capes, but the capes are flowing in big shapes. So to have this texture behind them that is very small, little, squares and dots and lines and hash marks and all that, it's a nice texture to help pop the heroes forward. So especially, I think you can really see it here. This guy looks like he's in front, and the texture around it helps to emphasize the point here. Of course, when the pieces are eventually colored, we'll be able to use color to help do that as well. So the way you would do that is your characters would be much more vibrant. They'd be brighter colors. They're even if your character has blue in their costume, your blue is going to be brighter, more intense. And then if the robot arms, let's just pretend they're gray color, just a straight metal whatever color, these would be a more warm kind of gray because they're up front. They'll have a lot of light on them. And then we'd use that same color but put it into more of a blue tone behind, and that pushes that element back even further. So that's some ways that we would use color as well as this size, texture, and overlapping. So you can see what I'm doing into here. I've got the robot arm. I've got some cables that have ripped out because he's just ripped it off. This one came off clean because he lasered it off with his laser vision, but this one's got pieces and parts hanging off of it. So that overlapping also helps you separate your foreground, middle ground, and background. So these are all tricks that you can use to help add depth and dimension to your drawings. You can also do that. So actually, I've sort of done that where the hand here is overlapping the legs of the figure. So this robot hand is going to be your most foreground piece. These guys become the middle ground. The arms of the robot reaching out are foreshortened, so they'll get slightly larger. So that's sort of there's a middle ground, a background, and this is a deep background, and this is going to be outer space. So I just did this black. We'll add black here too, but eventually I'm going to put stars and stuff up in there, And so that'll be an even deeper background. So that's the plan for all that. So that's adding, foreground, extreme foreground, middle ground, sort of background, deep background, real deep background. I've got like 4 or 5 layers of depth to this. So that'll be great. So let's see here. And then I'm going to do a slight gap here. And then, so kind of like what I did here, the gap of the wrist on the robot, and I kind of did in the shoulder. So almost like there's sort of these giant crazy cables that are stretched out in that joint. Again, just giving it a different sort of texture and look so that it isn't exactly the same as all the plates. And it just gives your eye something to look at and break up the shape some. And it helps keep the flow. So you can tell that this piece is different than this piece. That's the idea here. So let's see. And then like in here, I do have some areas in the face and stuff where I hinted that like there's bigger plates. So I'm going to do the same in the chest. So like the chest piece is made up of, big pieces of metal. And then that's going to go like that. So that's where our bicep would start. And so what I want to do here is I want to finish up all of these little textures and things in the shoulder, because then I can erase all the pencil lines from sort of here up, and I can go to some more dark inking and inking with thicker lines and stuff. And the reason I want to erase first is because there is a lot of graphite, a lot of lead on the page. You can see I make a lot of lines, and then I come in and change those lines and draw over it a bunch. And with being a lefty, I drag my hand, considerably across the page, and sometimes that will smudge. And so if you're not careful, if you ink over a lot of graphite, that will sometimes make the ink lift off the page, right? You're inking over lead instead of paper, and so it won't bond to the paper. You go to erase, and sometimes then part of your ink line comes up, so it'll fade your lines, it'll fade your black shaded areas, stuff like that. So that, you have to be careful there. Let's see. So what I want to do is I do want to erase those the lines, but I want to make sure that I'm not either smudging my inks or fading them either. So these pens, the Micron that I'm using, are pretty hardy. They hold up pretty well under the eraser, and I'll show you the eraser that I use when I do it. I have a couple different erasers depending on what it is I'm doing, but I'll show you what I do, what I use for when I'm inking. And as well, the pen dries quickly, so I don't have to wait a long time to make sure the ink's dry, so that I'm not worried about smudging it as I erase. So another thing I want to point out here is I'm drawing all of these, again, hints at panels and pieces, and it's technology. It's robot stuff. It's all sort of geographic. It's square. It's shapes and stuff. But I'm not using a straight edge. I have a lot of different straight edge tools, rulers, triangles, all kinds of stuff. But the reality is that this is so small. So this paper is 11 by 17, in case anybody's isn't familiar. The comic book art page that we use, the whole paper is 11 by 17. The box inside that I draw in is 10 by 15. And so that piece there reduces down to 67%. So it's less than half. And by the time that shrinks down, nobody's going to see whether all those lines are straight, parallel, that kind of stuff. So let's see here. Okay, so those the ink line there, the texture of the robot and stuff is done. So now I'm using my kneaded artist eraser. Again, this is the thing that will get rid of the pencil lines, all of the graphite I've put down all over the page, without pulling up the ink that I've already put down. And so I always recommend, before I go in and do any of this kind of stuff here, the dark ink work, the thicker ink line, erase. And don't forget to erase these other areas. Maybe you're left-handed, maybe you're not. I guess right-handers could smear as well. But you want to get it all up clean. Also helps when, if you're going to go ahead and scan the image after, you've got a nice clean area. So that way you don't have to clean up so much in Photoshop and stuff later. Okay, so I know that these areas are going to be solid black, so I don't have to ink the outline around this stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm coming in with this is a Kuretake. It's a flexible brush pen. So for me, I've got a pretty heavy hand. I use a lot of weight and push when I'm inking, and that's going to give me that flex and give me a nice thick line. And that nice thick line is what's going to help some of these parts here, which are all of the cables and the parts of the robot arm and stuff, pop out from the background. So do that. Here's this cable here. So again, one of the tricks you can use to sort of separate your foreground, background, middle ground elements is the line weight. The closer something is, the bigger the outline is around it. And again, here, you can thicken up your line where you like. So it's again, as I mentioned, it's a lot easier to go in and add ink than to take it away. So we're going to do a little bit of this. Here's his cape flowing down, and now this one. So his laser beams are sort of a source of light. The reflective sort of circles, bubbles, if you will, that are on their costumes. The white part is sort of that reflection of that laser light, any light coming this way, and the shadows on the other side. So I'm going to have the lines that are towards the light side a little thinner, and the lines on the other side thicker. So I did that over here on the face, on the arm, and I'm going to do that on the back side of this figure here as well. So that's going to be thicker there, but thin out as it comes around. And again, also, as I mentioned before, we've got some overlapping. So his cape goes behind him. The arm is in front of him. So you've got, even in your middle ground, you've got, different levels, different depths. It's important so that you have a feeling of three-dimensionality, again, giving the reader's eye something to look at, something to focus on. If everything is very flat and at the same distance, then it reads real quick. You want them to look and go, oh, wow, look at that hand. And, oh, okay, cool. Let me look at all the details in this. That's cool. Oh, wow, there's more. Oh, wow, there's even more. And it just adds more to what you're presenting, what you're doing. So I'm not going to go all the way down. Again, I haven't done any of this stuff. I know I'm going to have to erase through here, and I don't want to erase and pull up that line. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that there. And then I'm going to do that. So now I'm just using the same pen, but with less pressure to do a slightly thinner line. And again, I can always go in if I feel like I'm not getting enough thickness on the line. I could go in and add to that later if I want. So let's go back to the robot here. So then what I've done in some of the areas of the robot where I did like the shoulder, the lines around some of the face elements, again, sort of separating some of those. I use this Tombow 03 pen. Again, something that I think I got at a art supply store or an office supply store, something like that. Pretty readily available. I like it. So it just goes to show, like, I've been using Microns like this for literally for decades. I've used these Microns for over 20 years. And I have all kinds of them, all kinds of sizes. Then I started using more of these Faber-Castell Pitt pens. And again, I like those a lot. Those are pretty good. They can be expensive. But I've started seeing other artists using different stuff, using these Tombow pens. I'll show you some of the brush pen that I showed you, as well as I've got a couple others that I'll be using. And you go, I'm going to just try it. I'm going to try them all and see, what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And, what I'm finding is, as I go ahead, it's not the tool necessarily. You can find a really neat tool that works for you, and take advice from an artist that you like. See, they get a certain result out of the pen. That's great. You want to try to do the same thing and mimic it. Go for it. But really, you can put ink on the end of a stick with a leaf, and if that's what gives you the mark you need to put it on the paper, it really doesn't matter. But that said, I'm always happy to share, again, what works for me and see if maybe it helps somebody and works for you as well. So here is another pen that I used. I don't know the name of this one. I did get this from jetpens.com. It's a Japanese brush pen. All of the ink is in the handle, and you twist it off and you can replace it when you run out. So this part here is sort of a chamber. You squeeze the ink, it goes into the chamber, and then down into the tip of the brush, which is like a nylon brush. When you get it, it is a little pointier. This one's older, and so the brush is a little worn out, which is okay for me because I like to use it for this application, which is big areas where I have to put in a lot of black ink. It doesn't do me any good to have a nice sharp pointy brush because I'm just kind of spreading painting in a large area. So I really like this pen for a couple of reasons. One, as I said, the it's replaceable, so it's refillable. I don't have to clean like a regular brush, right? If I had just bought a brush and dipped it into a bottle of ink, I'd have to keep that brush clean. Otherwise it would dry out and stiffen up. This one does not. I just put the cap on and come back and it's good. I think this is the third ink replacement that I've done with this pen. And I haven't had to worry about the brush tip drying out. The other thing that's cool is when the ink does dry, it is very opaque. It is very dark. A lot of inks, especially like the pens, right? Again, I was using the Faber-Castell Pitt pen, and they have these really big ones. And you go to do it, and you might have to go over it 2 or 3 times to get a really truly black. It'd be sort of grayish. It'd sort of fade out, especially as the marker was starting to die. This is very, very opaque, very dark, which again means less work in Photoshop after of adjustments. All I have to do is I make like two basic adjustments when I scan anything. So it's just two numbers you put in for like the contrast and the brightness. I've set that and I scan it, and I don't have to do anything else as far as I don't have to change the levels or the curves or anything to get that black and white the way I want it. It's really good just off the bat. And that has a lot to do with that pen and getting a good opaque black ink. I'm going to use this Tombow. This is the soft tip brush pen. These come in a 2-pack. You can get with this one and with the hard tip. This is good for some of your line work because it is a hard tip. You can get a very fine, thin, controlled line. This one is softer, more brushy, and what I like to do, you can see I left sort of a gap. I want to be real precise about where I put the ink around the robot hand and the body in the background. So this is perfect for that. So I wait till this is dried, and the ink that I put down with the big brush pen, it dries really fast. That's another great element to that as well. So I can come in and fill in these white areas with this, and it's got a nice, it's got a flexible brush tip to this pen, so you can get wide areas by bearing down a little bit, or if I've got a real, here's a point in the corner, you come in with a light touch and you can color that in and just have a lot more control than I would with a brush. That's not for everybody. Some folks are very skilled with their brushes. They've got multiple, brushes with different sizes and such, and I'm sure that they could ink this all brush, no problem. For me, that's just not where I'm at. So if you're like me and you're not an inking brush master, highly recommend looking into different kinds of brush pens. It's the best of both worlds, right? It gives you the control you're used to with a pencil or pen, and gives you some of the application benefits of a brush. And then also, if you're like me and you are an art supply nerd or geek like me, man, I love trying new stuff. I love going to the art supply store and looking around and seeing something that I haven't seen before, or maybe seeing an artist on YouTube and they've got this new pen and I've never seen it, and I'm like, ooh, what's that? What's that? Take a note and see if I can find it and give it a try. So yeah, new pen day or new art supply day is awesome. So don't be afraid to try new stuff. You may have something you absolutely love. Like I said, I use those Microns for decades. I use those for, more than 20 years, Microns, and swore up and down by them. They're the greatest. And I still, as you can see, I still use them for a lot of application. But it used to be the only pen that I used. And I stuck with it. And then, got to a point where I was like, well, let me try something else. And, found there were other pens that work better for me. So don't be afraid to try them. So a little shading on the arm there. Let's see. Like this one, this is Artist Loft. I have no idea who makes this. I think I got this probably at Michael's. It's a 05. So it's a little bit bigger than the one that did the lines over there. I'm going to do that to do the ends of the inside where the cables overlap and stuff. So some of my inside lines. Get some little shadows on that. Alrighty. So that's about it. That's where I'm going to wrap it up as far as the drawing part of the show. So again, thank you everybody for checking out the video. Again, keep your eyes open for updates. I'm going to continue to work hard to try to give you new videos as often as I can. May is just super busy. We have birthdays, we have Mother's Day, which actually is today, and we have a new puppy in our house. So things have been a little hectic, but I am working all the time, as you can see, on new artwork, and hopefully that'll mean new videos for you as well. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel, and like I said, keep your eyes open for updates on The Just. Again, that new series coming out from myself and Terry Sala, as well as updates on my book, M Squad. So M Squad is where it was the title we're going with. It is at the letter now. This is the book that I created, all the characters I created, the story I wrote, the story I illustrated. It is at the letterers, and we are getting ready for production. So within a couple of months, we're going to have a book that's ready for print, which means it's going to be ready for you to buy. So super excited about that. Thank you all so much. Check me out, of course, here on YouTube, as well as Facebook and Instagram. And thank you all again, and we'll talk again real soon.